If you think you already know how the story of ice and fire ends, guess again, because the winds of winter are blowing. A vast herd of horses appeared below them. There were riders too, a score or more, but they turned and fled at the first sight of the dragon. The horses broke and ran when the shadow fell upon them, racing through the grass until their sides were white with foam, tearing the ground with their hooves. But as swift as they were, they could not fly. Soon one horse began to lag behind the others. The dragon descended on him, roaring, and all at once the poor beast was aflame. Yet somehow he kept on running, screaming with every step, until Drogon landed on him and broke his back. Dany clutched the dragon's neck with all her strength to keep from sliding off. The carcass was too heavy for him to bear back to his lair, so Drogon consumed his kill there, tearing at the charred flesh as the grasses burned around them, the air thick with drifting smoke and the smell of burnt horsehair. Dany, starved, slid off his back and ate with him, ripping chunks of smoking meat from the dead horse with bare-burned hands. As the western sky turned the color of a blood bruise, she heard the sound of approaching horses. Dany rose, wiped her hands on her ragged undertunic, and went to stand beside her dragon. That was how Khal Joko found her, when 100 mounted warriors emerged from the drifting smoke.
Alright, so that's where we left Daenerys, facing down Khal Jaco's khalasar with Drogon. She's kind of embraced who she is, and she's down in the dirt with Drogon, eating the charred horse meat.
That's right, and that's why I've got my box of Slim Jims here, so we can snap into some horse meat. And it's actually the first good meal that Dany's had in quite a while. She was deliriously sick and eating green berries and drinking from the muddy stream, so the horse meat's actually probably really good.
It's probably so tasty to her right now. It's like fresh, hot.
Yes, and not only that, but it's giving her some valuable protein because she's going to need it facing down a giant khalasar with her dragon.
Absolutely.
So, pretty exciting place to leave her. Definitely queued up for some action as soon as we see that first Daenerys page in the Winds of Winter. Those of us who still read the books,
So excited.
we know that we're going to be dealing with something right away. So,
Absolutely.
all right. And so the first question is, will Dany go willingly to face Dothrak?
I mean, for me, there really is no question because she has the dragon. She can do whatever she wants. She can fly away. She could roast them if she wanted. So I think she really has to.
Probably, yeah. I mean, as we discussed, there's...
But then, yeah, of course, there are some other potential ways that it could go.
Yeah, the one option that makes sense to us, other than just straight up Dany, Dracarysing, is that a verb? Not a very good one. Roasting everyone with dragonfire, is the idea of some sort of negotiation or stalemate. Because if you look at it, in that moment, they might be able to kill Dany with archery. She definitely is at risk, but the dragon would take out how many Dothraki? Definitely the Khal standing right there in front of her. So definitely possible they could have a little bit of a standoff. Dany might be amenable to going back to, Vaes Dothrak and the Mother of Mountains with obviously ulterior motives in mind. So we'll just have to see, But
that goes right into our next question, which is how will Drogon affect the way Dany is perceived by the Dothraki? Right, because they respect power, big stallions, and Drogon is the biggest stallion of all.
Yes, he is. And there's, of course, a running dragon-horse comparison all throughout her chapter. Dany's thinking about riding a dragon, how it's different than riding a horse, and the dragon's heads are compared to horse heads. There's a lot of horse-dragon symbolism going on all throughout the story, and definitely in this chapter. So all that is just to say, she has the biggest stallion. So Dany may have won a great victory against Jaco by the time she gets back to Vaes Dothrak. And so that's going to, obviously another bell in her hair. It's going to make her impressive if that's the case. And then, we have this pattern of Dany defying Dothraki traditions, right? She started by protecting the captives, by being a female Khal, most notably. And there's one more tradition that she might defy that you picked up on.
Yeah, and it involves the Mother of Mountains, and this is a quote from A Game of Thrones.
Drogo, who is blood of my blood, commands me to tell you that he must ascend the Mother of Mountains this night to sacrifice to the gods for his safe return. Only men were allowed to set foot on the Mother, Dany knew. The Khals' blood riders would go with him and return at dawn.
So this definitely sounds like foreshadowing here. Definitely no women can go up on the mountain, especially not a female Khal who has no respect for, patriarchal tradition or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely think Dany is gonna go up their mountain and be like, I'm on your mountain, follow me up to the mountain, you can't get me. And they're gonna be like really mad and like mad because like this little girl is defying them and she's on their mountain. They're gonna come up to get her and then potentially Dracarys, but we'll see.
So we could see some version of the flaming tent scene, which by the way, one of the best show scenes.
Yeah.
Maybe up on the mountain. I would really like that. That makes sense. It's called the Mother of Mountains. Only men can go up there. Doesn't really make sense.
Well, right. But what makes this scene good is not because it's like accurate, but it's because it's like thematically accurate, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And because if you think about it, Dany is the Mysa. She is the mother. So of course she can go up there. And how can she get up there? Oh, well, she's on it. If she uses Drogon to fly up there, Drogon would be the stallion who mounts the mountain. Now, there are two interesting sort of prophecies that Dany is probably on her way to fulfilling here. And the first one is the House of the Undying prophecy, which we will read here, and this is from A Clash of Kings.
Beneath the Mother of Mountains, a line of naked crones crept from a great lake and knelt shivering before her, their gray heads bowed.
There could be like a more literal interpretation of this, like if there is like some gigantic fire, the crones could be in the water to avoid it, or there could be more of a symbolic explanation.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see a lot of fire, going down, and as we know, diving into the lake or river nearby is a good way to avoid dragon fire, as Jamie did, although apparently you can wear armor and still swim, but we won't address that. So, anyways, symbolic interpretation. Let's think about this. It's, as we said, the womb of the world is a symbol of rebirth. It's where the first Dothraki rider emerged from. Dany did a rebirth ceremony in the womb of the world. And so when you think of the crones emerging from the womb of the world, it's rebirth symbolism for the entire Dosh Khaleen. This to me sounds like Dany remaking Dothraki culture again. She's gonna find a new purpose. Like the Dosh Khaleen, this is a vast wealth of knowledge and experience potentially to tap into, but they're sort of stuck in base Dothrak. They do have a position of privilege there, but they're not allowed to leave. Dany chafed against that as soon as she heard about that in the first book, so...
that really goes back to how I've always viewed Dany as a character. Like, she's fire and rapid change. She's here to come and, shake things up and change the way the world works, break the wheel, essentially.
Yeah, and so that would fit in with that very well, and it would nicely fulfill that prophecy of the crones' heads being bowed. And so it's not, because she's not there to humiliate them, it's more like a rebirth. And so again, I think that makes sense. That's what the womb of the world's all about. And then of course the other big prophecy we have is this stallion who mounts the world prophecy. And so the question is, how will that be fulfilled?
Absolutely. So we all remember the stallion who mounts the world prophecy, but let's refresh our memories with this very dramatic scene from A Game of Thrones.
As swift as the wind he rides, and behind him his khalasar covers the earth, men without number, with aurochs shining in their hands like blades of razor grass. Fierce as a storm this prince will be. His enemies will tremble before him, and their wives will weep tears of blood and rend their flesh in grief. The bells in his hair will sing his coming, and the milkmen in stone tents will fear his name. The old woman trembled and looked at Dany almost as if she were afraid. The prince is riding, and he shall be the stallion who mounts the world.
Cheer your horse hearts along at home if you got them. So one little bit from the House of the Undying was something about 3 fires will she light, right? And one of them was for death. This could definitely be the fire for death if she lights a fire to kill the cows using Drogon. Kind of makes sense to me there. One of the things that stood out when we got this quote at the beginning was like just how terrified everyone was, specifically the crone giving the prophecy. Mm-hmm. But all this makes sense if we're talking about a dragon. Like, swift as the wind he rides. Let's see, what was the rest of it? Fierce as a storm, his enemies trembling before him, weeping tears of blood, rending their flesh in grief, fearing his name. Like, that sounds like the winged shadow, Drogon.
Mm-hmm. Valerian come again.
Right, and then of course we have that little leftover bit from the House of the Undying prophecy about 3 fires shall you light. One of them was for death. Could definitely be some sort of burning the cows moment.
And if she murdered the cows, that would unite the khalasars because she would be the sole ruler of all the khalasars.
Indeed,
in the show.
Right, and that's why it makes sense to see something similar in the show. One of the things from the show that actually made sense.
Yeah.
And so then, if Drogon were the one to kill the cows, then that would make a lot of sense. It gives him that role as the Stallion, mounting the world and uniting the khalasars. And you could say that Dany and Drogon is the Stallion, or maybe Dany is the dragon who mounts the Stallion that mounts the world. I don't know.
But it's cool if Drogon actually does the act of killing them, because he's like, I'm the cow now, like technically, so that's interesting.
Khal Drogon.
Khal Drogon,
I mean, it makes sense,
exactly,
right? Can we get some Khal Drogon fan art, somebody? And of course, as all fans of mythical astronomy know, hopefully that's some of you guys, I love symbolism, and there is some symbolism here in this last chapter to back up the idea that Drogon specifically is the king of the Dothraki and the Stallion who mounts the world. And so I'm just going to snag these quotes real quick. So Dany, in this last chapter, as she's eating the horse meat, she sees the grass begin to move, all right? And it says, she's hearing the Dothraki scout approach. And it says, from the corner of her eye, Dany saw the grass move again off to her right. The grass swayed and bowed low, as if before a king, but no king appeared to her. And then a second later it says, the green sea opened and a rider appeared. So there's that imagery from, the first rider emerging from the womb of the world. There's one rider emerging from a sea, and we have this line about the grass bowing low as if before a king. This isn't a king though, it's just a Dothraki rider.
Yes.
But a second later, the grass bows low again, and we do get King Drogon, Khal Drogon, if you will. And the lyric, or not the lyric, I guess it is kind of lyrical, but the line here is, Dany watched him go. When the sound of his hooves had faded away to silence, she began to shout. She called until her voice was hoarse. That's another horse joke. And Drogon came, snorting plumes of smoke. The grass bowed down before him. Dany leapt onto his back. And so these quotes appear only like a page apart or less. And so you have the grass bowing low, and here is King Drogon, the Stallion who mounts the world.
All right, so that's really cool. I always love your symbolism. So our conclusion...
Quinn's approval.
You have the Quinn stamp of approval. So our conclusion, what will she do with her new khalasar? Right, so is Dany gonna return to Meereen with the Dothraki? They obviously probably have resources and fighters that are useful to Dany.
Yeah, you gotta load them up on those Ironborn ships, man.
Yeah.
So this is, I guess the question is also like how many, will it be the entire, I mean it should be the entire nation, right? That's the prophecy. It should be all the Dothraki. And so how is she gonna gather all the Dothraki in base Dothrak? Will they just coincidentally be there for like Harvest Feast or something, or?
I don't know. It seems like something has to happen. Like maybe a gathering will be called or something similar, almost to what they did in the show. Maybe it's a special reason. She does have a dragon.
Maybe she'll just light a fire so big that it looks like the Mother of Mountains is a smoking volcano, and people will just come running. But whatever it happens, it's going to be very exciting. There's going to be a lot of action. And like we said in the Tyrion video, it's going to be a hot minute before she can get back to Meereen, but she will most likely have a brand new khalasar, and hopefully they'll be the type of khalasar that can completely die against the others and then respawn in time for the inauguration ceremony or whatever.
Exactly.
So that's the kind of khalasar you want. Anyways, we'll see you next time with plotline number 4.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
Over the next 23 days, starting right now, we'll be releasing videos alternating between both of our channels, covering all of the awesome stuff that's coming in A Song of Ice and Fire, book number 6, from Jon Snow's Resurrection to Euron Greyjoy's Apotheosis. So make sure you subscribe to both of our channels so you don't miss anything, and those links will be in the description, of course.